Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Monday, November 9th, 2015. Here are our top stories.
Tonight, the climate panic as the massive trade agreement nears. Then, did you know that a nuke was fired off the coast of California? And political insider and Donald Trump advisor Roger Stone on the Clinton machine. That's next.
Bill Clinton, admittedly, I saw the numbers a few months ago, more than half the tens of millions he raises a year with his charity off black kids goes for his fleet of private jets and foundation homes he lives in all over the world. Or something like $25 million a year goes to it. But he says he likes black people, so they worship him. I mean, it is just, it's just sick. You don't control me, Bill Clinton, you piece of crap.
Clean, pure drinking water. You can't survive without it. But where do you get it? Alexa Pure Pro is a brand new, groundbreaking, gravity-fed water filtration system that is like no other. The Alexa Pure Pro transforms water from virtually any fresh source into clean, healthy drinking water, pairing the unprecedented superfiltration power of an all-new gravity block core with a hybrid chromatic shell. It removes up to 99.999% of impurities, including bacteria, viruses, fluoride, disinfectants, volatile organic contaminants, and hormones. Filter capacity up to 5,000 gallons. Stainless steel construction, easy assembly, low maintenance. Replacement filters are simple to install. And now, as part of an exclusive limited time introductory offer, you can save $20 off the retail price and get free shipping. This is a limited time offer, so order your unit today and receive free shipping and $20 off. Go to InfoWarsStore.com or call 888-253-3139.
Well, of course, this last weekend, we had a test missile fired as part of military exercises off the coast of L.A. It alarmed quite a few people, and the pictures were absolutely amazing. Some of them truly did look like a UFO. It looked like the missile was right overhead. But we're told by the local press that secrecy was crucial in this missile test launch that rattled L.A. Southern California, they say, and L.A. now, is now well aware of the light in the sky that caused so much discussion Saturday night. It was an unarmed Trident II D5 missile test flight off the coast. And oh, by the way, those things cost $30 million each, but you know, who's counting? This is the Defense Department, right? The test was top secret. The military was released relatively little information, but officials acknowledged they didn't anticipate the brightness of the launch and the public's reaction. Yet, who would know that that would be so bright? I mean, you know, have they ever done one of these things before? They don't have any idea it's going to be so bright. Of course, this is in a bright city, but you know, it also brings up the question, and we're going to look at this from multiple angles. Why do they consistently do these tests close to the most heavily populated areas in the United States? And they go on to say, at the same time, the military is determined to keep tests shrouded in secrecy to thwart any efforts by potential adversaries, namely Russia and China, to monitor the missile launch and flight. So essentially only the American public is to be kept in the dark, because we know that the Russians and the Chinese are watching the U.S. military just like we watch their military. Now, they had announced this on Friday that they were closing air traffic west of LAX airport. Nevertheless, they didn't give any kind of idea to anyone. It was not widely reported even that they were diverting flights, and no one had an idea that this was going to happen. And I question whether or not maybe this was even an accident. You don't think that could happen? Look at what happened on the East Coast only about a week or so ago with the blimp terrorizing the Northeast. Of course, that couldn't happen either. And there are also questions about the effectiveness, the operational ability of the Trident system itself. There was an article this last May about what was happening in the UK program, the Trident missiles, and of course they're the same system that we have here in the United States. They buy this from the US. They say information released by a submariner who blew the whistle on poor safety practices and equipment failures on board HMS Vanguard, one of the Royal Navy's nuclear-armed Trident submarines, indicates that the UK may not be able to guarantee launch of any time nuclear strike that the Trident system is designed to deliver. This is a man named William McNeely, an engineering technician who until recently served on board the HMS Vanguard. He claims the submarine was not able to successfully complete tests to demonstrate that it would be able to launch its payload of missiles. He claims that at the end of one patrol, the Vanguard failed to pass 2 critical tests intended to confirm whether it could have performed a successful missile launch. Problems caused by seawater entering the submarine's hydraulic system used to open the hatches, which seal the Trident missile launch tubes, prevented the sub from completing a critical battle-ready test required to demonstrate that the hatches would open correctly. And then he points out another test, known as the WP-186 missile compensation test, conducted 3 times, failed all 3 occasions, intended to show that the missile compensation system can accurately compensate for changes in weight of the sub during a Trident missile launch. Failure to pass a test means that the missiles will launch from an unstable platform if they are fired. So we understand that the military needs to test this. We also understand that they need to demonstrate to the Russians and the Chinese how tough they are, that their systems work. But of course, they have absolute contempt for the American public when they do this. This is a report that we have on INFOWARS today. Michael Snyder asks, why did the U.S. launch a nuclear missile that would be visible from L.A. without any warning? Of course, he points out that when the U.S. military established a no-fly zone west of L.A. for a week, it raised many eyebrows, but nobody expected this. And this could be seen even by people living in Arizona and Nevada. And I have to point out that when the military is doing exercises, again, they're going to continue to do these exercises for the next week. Do you remember that when Flight 800, TWA 800 went down, and that was off of Long Island, close to New York City, and the Navy was conducting exercises at that time. There were many eyewitnesses that said they saw a cruise missile heading up and toward the commercial airliner. There's been a documentary on that went into great detail, the cover-up, subsequent cover-up, the confiscation of tapes, the FBI's role in all this. That's what we have to be concerned about. And the question is, why does the military continue to do these exercises in populated areas? And of course, they're there to send a message, not only to the Russians and to the Chinese, but to the American people. Essentially, that was what Jade Helm was about. They were sending a message to us, just like when they do an exercise near the Ukraine, they're sending a message to the Russians. And clearly, this was a message that they were sending. They point out in this article, last night's test of the Trident missile system over Orange County was staged near a high population area for a tactical reason, to have as many witnesses and videos as possible, to send a very visible warning message to China that says, we can destroy you if you don't back off. Yes, and of course, they could care less about the safety and the information given to the American public, because we're simply pawns and their global scheme. Understand that the government is not there to protect you. They're not there to defend you. The Defense Department is there to guarantee continuity of government. And if that means that you're around to pay the bills, then fine. If not, they could care less. And neither could the Republican candidates who put a for sale sign around their necks for the military-industrial complex. As Kurt Nemo points out today in this article, Republican candidates call for war. Republicans want intervention in Syria, Iraq, Libya, everywhere. Why not? Let's go to war with everyone, including the Russians and the Chinese. Senator Rubio, Jeb Bush, John Kasich are all calling for military intervention in response to the suspected downing of a Russian airliner last week. And we should also add to that list Ben Carson, who was boasting last week, as he said, remember when Obama sent 50 military advisors to Syria, and that's the way the Vietnam War began to ramp up. Donald Trump said, this is not it. You either go big or go home. Well, we could have a discussion as to whether or not there's any authority for the president to have a war, couldn't we? We could have a question as to whether or not this is something we need to be doing. But Trump rightfully questioned the efficacy of this and if this is something we want to begin. However, Ben Carson said, well, I have big plans. I have much bigger plans. He says, my much, much bigger plan involves Putin and Iran. You know, beating his chest. Here's somebody who puts himself out there as a gentle Christian, beating his chest, talking about how he wants to bring us to the brink of World War III by challenging Putin. Really? Really? Rand Paul says Clinton and Rubio are both neoconservatives. He blasted their support of intervention in Middle Eastern countries. He said Hillary Clinton is a neoconservative just like Marco Rubio. And he said this on Sunday's CNN State of the Union with Jake Tapper. He said, I see her as a neoconservative. And they said, really? He says, yeah, well, you know, she and Rubio, and you could add to that list, of course, Lindsey Graham, Ben Carson, Jeb Bush, all the people who are carrying the luggage of the military-industrial complex. He said they both wanted a no-fly zone. They both have supported activity in Libya. The war in Libya that toppled Gaddafi was an intervention that made us less safe. Precisely. The policies of our government are not defending us. The policies of our government, when it creates all of these wars, are not making us safer. They are putting us at greater risk. They are willing to send you, they're willing to send your children to war, to die for the profits of the military-industrial complex. And these people who are running for presidency, whether it's Hillary Clinton or the vast majority of those within the GOP who are running for president, they are simply puppets and whores for the military-industrial complex. But it doesn't end there. The military-industrial complex is always looking for ways to expand warfare. Look at this article. Lethal cyber warfare. Pentagon secretly develops cyber weapons that are able to kill. And remember, we had this discussion a while back when there were some cyber attacks, and I said, well, we really need to discuss whether or not this is real terrorism or not. I mean, maybe this doesn't rise to the level of an attack on a country, or maybe it does. They were having this back and forth because they said, if you have an attack on a country, it has to involve something destructive or taking people's lives. Well, they're working on that. They're working on that. DARPA's working on that. They say so-called logic bombs, instead of using traditional explosive projectiles, would essentially be able to direct an enemy's critical infrastructure to self-destruct, likely with the loss of human life. And this is according to a site called NextGov. It's a web-based information resource that reports on technology used by the U.S. federal government. Now, this is in addition to the autonomous killing robots that they are talking about having. Swarms of drones that don't need any human intervention to murder people in massive numbers, and they can just say, oh, it was a software error, plausible deniability. You know how that works out, right? So we have these autonomous killing drones, autonomous killer robots. We have the Pentagon papers that we've talked about that talk about what the battlefield is going to look like in 15, 20 years, something that will be completely automated. And now they're talking about taking it into actual cyberspace as well. And they say digital arms designed to kill are sanctioned. There you go, just like 007. We've got our own assassinating digital arms now, because that's what we have become. A government that openly assassinates people and could care less about innocent civilians that they call collateral damage. That's what we see going on with these drone strikes under Obama. You remember Obama, the guy who ran as a peace-loving Democrat who has now been involved in 7 wars and openly assassinating people with drones? We used to be ashamed of that. We used to have, remember when we had hearings back in the 1970s, the church hearings, where they were embarrassed and ashamed that they were caught plotting assassinations of Castro and others. Now they brag about it. People like Lindsey Graham brag about it. Obama brags that he's really good at killing people. And understand that as the U.S. war machine expands this capability, that even if they're first, other countries will get it. So when they invent these capabilities, whether it's killer robots, drone swarms that can kill people, or cyber attacks that can blow up infrastructure, understand that the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, everybody is eventually going to be using this to come after us as well. That's what happens when you invent these kinds of weapons that DARPA is constantly pushing on. But of course, it never stops them from tracking you. They may want to have all of their weapons tests be completely secret, but they don't want anything that you do to be secret. Look at this article here, how law enforcement can use Google Timeline to track your every move. This comes from The Intercept. They say the recent expansion of Google's Timeline feature can provide investigators unprecedented access to users' location history data, allowing them in many cases to track a person's every move over the course of a number of years, according to a report recently circulated to law enforcement. Isn't it convenient that Google, that began with venture capital funding from the CIA, isn't it interesting that now that they've just passed CISA, which relieves them of any liability that they would have releasing information like that to you, about you, to the law